The sound came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Commander Lisa Harper stopped typing her morning report and tilted her head, listening. Outside the observation deck of Outpost 7, the stars looked the same as always. Cold, distant, silent. But they were not silent anymore. The sound was like music, but sad music. It was like someone crying, but beautiful crying. Lisa had never heard anything like it in her 12 years of deep space monitoring. She pushed her coffee aside and walked to the main console. Computer, are you picking up any unusual signals? Yes, Commander. Multiple frequency anomalies detected across 17 sectors. The signals appear to be artificial in origin. Lisa felt her heart speed up. In all her time at the monitoring station, they had never detected anything that might be alien communication. Earth had been sending radio waves and probe ships out for decades, hoping to find other life. Now something was finally talking back. Show me the signal analysis. The screen filled with wave patterns that looked like mountains and valleys made of light. The computer had tried to organize them, but they were too complex, too beautiful, too alien. Dr. Alex Bennett rushed onto the bridge, his hair messy from sleep. He was the best language expert Earth had, which was why they sent him to this lonely outpost in the first place. Just in case. Lisa, are you seeing this? My computer woke me up. It says there are dozens of different signal sources. Different sources? Different languages, I think. Maybe different species. Alex sat at his workstation and started pulling up analysis programs. His fingers moved fast across the controls. This is incredible. Look at this pattern here. It repeats every 47 seconds. And this one, it has mathematical sequences built into the rhythm. Lisa watched the screens fill with data. More signals were coming in every minute. The computer was having trouble keeping up. Alex, what do you think they are saying? Alex was quiet for a moment, studying the patterns. Then he looked up at her with wide eyes. I think they are asking for help. 300 light years away, on the world called Valara Prime, Harmony Song of the Third Movement stood in the crystal chamber and sang the prayer of desperate hope. Her voice joined with thousands of others across the planet, creating the musical message they were sending to the stars. The Valari had never needed to ask for help before. Their world was perfect. No wars, no hunger, no fear. They grew food that tasted like sunshine and built cities from living crystal that sang in the wind. For 10,000 years, they had lived in peace. But now, the darkness was coming. Harmony. Song had seen the reports from the outer worlds. Entire planets going silent. Not destroyed by weapons or disasters, but simply gone. Where there had been worlds full of life, now there was only empty space. Not even rocks or dust remained. It was as if the worlds had never existed at all. The creatures responsible had no name in the Valari language. The closest translation was the Devourers. They came from the deep dark between galaxies, and they consumed everything. Not just buildings, or trees or bodies, but the very idea of existence itself. The Valari had no weapons. They had no armies. They had never needed them. All they could do was sing their beautiful songs into space and hope that somewhere, someone would hear and come to help. Harmony. Song believed that good beings lived among the stars. Wise beings. Kind beings. Beings who would understand that all life was precious and worth protecting. Her song carried this hope across the galaxy, mixing with the voices of her people in a prayer that made the crystal cities ring like bells. She did not know that her prayer would be answered by something very different from what she hoped for. Back on Outpost 7, Alex had been working for 6 hours straight. His eyes were red from staring at screens, and his hands shook from too much coffee. But he was making progress. Lisa, you need to see this. She came over to his station, where he had managed to partially decode 3 different alien languages. This one comes from an aquatic species. See how the sound patterns match water movement? They call themselves something like the hydros. And this one, these clicking sounds, they are from insect-like creatures, the Chitari. What are they saying? Alex pointed to his translation screen. The words were rough and incomplete, but the meaning was clear. Help us. Please help us. Death comes from the dark. We cannot fight. Please help. Lisa felt cold. All of them are saying the same thing? Yes. Dozens of different species, all asking for help against something they call the Devourers, something that eats entire worlds. Lisa walked to the main communication console. This was too big for a deep space monitoring station. This needed to go straight to Earth Command. Computer, open priority channel to Admiral Kate Morrison, Cosmic Defense Division. The screen flickered and then Admiral Morrison's stern face appeared. She was in her office at the Pentagon, probably working late as usual. Morrison had gray hair and hard eyes that had seen too many classified reports. Commander Harper. This better be important. It is 3 a.m. here. Admiral, we have a situation. We are receiving distress signals from multiple alien species. They are asking for help against something called the Devourers. Morrison's expression changed. She leaned forward. Are you certain these signals are genuine alien communications? Dr. Bennett has confirmed it. At least 20 different languages from different species. They all tell the same story. Something is destroying entire worlds. Send me everything you have. Full data package, encrypted channel. Yes, ma'am. While Alex prepared the data transmission, more signals kept arriving. The computer was struggling to process them all. Lisa watched the star maps update as new distress calls came in from across the galaxy. Admiral, there is something else. The signals are not just asking for help, they are asking for specific help. What do you mean? Alex looked up from his console. They keep using terms that translate to things like guardians of light and noble defenders and wise protectors. I think they expect their rescuers to be, well, good. Admiral Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, but it was not a warm smile. Commander Harper, Dr. Bennett, what you have discovered tonight will change everything. Maintain monitoring and continue translation efforts. Do not under any circumstances discuss this with anyone else. What are you going to do, Admiral? I am going to give those aliens exactly what they need. It just might not be what they want. The transmission ended, leaving Lisa and Alex alone, with the endless stream of alien voices crying out in the dark. On dozens of worlds, billions of beings were praying to the cosmos for salvation. They dreamed of wise guardians coming to save them with wisdom and kindness. They had no idea that Admiral Morrison was already planning Operation Hellhound. In the depths of space, the first Devourer scout ships moved between the stars like shadows, made real. They had no interest in the alien prayers. They had no interest in hope or fear or desperation. They existed only to consume, to erase, to make the universe clean and empty again. Behind them, in the dark between galaxies, something vast and ancient stirred. The Devourer Queen felt the vibrations of conscious thought spreading across the stars like an infection. Soon she would send her children to cure the universe of the disease called life. But she did not know that on a small blue world called Earth, another kind of monster was waking up. Monsters that had spent thousands of years learning how to kill each other were about to turn their attention to something else. The aliens had asked the cosmos for salvation. They were about to get humanity instead. The bar on Mars Colony was the kind of place where people came to forget. The air smelled like cheap alcohol and recycled oxygen. The lights were dim, and nobody asked questions. Captain Jake Sullivan sat in the corner booth, staring at the bottom of his whiskey glass. He had been drinking for 3 days straight, trying to wash away the memories of the Titan War. The things he had done there were classified so deep that even he was not supposed to remember them. But he did remember. Every night when he closed his eyes, he saw the faces. The bartender was a retired Marine who had lost his left arm in the asteroid belt. He knew better than to ask Jake if he wanted another drink. He just kept them coming. Jake was reaching for his glass when his communication device buzzed. He ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. Finally, he looked at the screen. Priority Alpha message. Classified. Admiral Morrison. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. Go away, Kate, I am retired. The device buzzed once more. This time the message was different. Check the news feeds, then call me. This is not optional. Jake switched his device to news mode. The headlines made him sit up straight. Mysterious signals from space confirmed alien origin. Scientists decode alien distress calls. Government. Officials refused to comment on alien contact. He read the articles twice before calling Admiral Morrison back. Hello, Jake. Enjoying your vacation? What do you want, Kate? I want you to save the galaxy. The galaxy can save itself. I am done killing things. Even if those things are trying to eat entire civilizations? Jake was quiet for a moment. He had seen the classified reports about the alien signals. He knew Admiral Morrison would not call him unless the situation was very bad. What kind of things? The kind that make the Titan rebels look like kindergarten children. Are you interested? I will call you back in an hour. Jake finished his drink and walked out of the bar. Mars Colony never slept, so the streets were still busy even at midnight. He walked past the entertainment district and the shopping centers until he reached the War Memorial. The black stone wall listed the names of everyone who died in the wars that built human civilization. The Titan War, the Belt Uprising, the Europa Incident. Jake found the names of his old squad and traced them with his finger. Good soldiers, dead soldiers. Soldiers who died because Jake had made the hard choices that kept everyone else alive. He called Admiral Morrison back. I am listening. Good. Pack your gear. You leave in 6 hours. Across the solar system, Colonel Amy Stevens stood in the middle of Military Prison Complex 7 and looked at the files Admiral Morrison had sent her. She needed a team for a mission that regular soldiers could not handle. She needed specialists. She needed people who scared other soldiers. The first file belonged to Tony Martinez, demolitions expert. He was serving 20 years for using illegal weapons during a civilian evacuation. The civilians had been saved, but an entire city block had been turned into glass. Tony did not regret it. The second file was Claire Johnson, sniper. She held the record for longest confirmed kill shot in human history. She was in prison because she had shot an enemy leader during peace negotiations. The war had ended the next day, but the politicians called it a war crime. The third file was Ryan Brooks, cyber warfare specialist. He had hacked into an enemy computer system and turned their own defense grid against their population centers. 40,000 people died in 30 seconds. Ryan said he would do it again if he had to. Stevens walked down the corridor to Tony's cell first. He was sitting on his bed, reading a book about advanced chemistry. He looked up when she entered. Colonel Stevens, I wondered when someone would come for me. How did you know? Because whatever is happening out there is big enough to make them wake up people like us. When do we leave? As soon as you can pack. I do not have anything to pack. Claire's cell was next. The sniper was doing push-ups when Stevens arrived. She did not stop exercising. Alien invasion? Claire asked. How did you guess? Nothing else would make them pull me out of here. Are we talking little green men or something worse? Much worse. Good. I was getting bored. Ryan's cell was different. It was filled with computer equipment that he had built from spare parts. He was typing code when Stevens walked in. Already hacking into the mission files, Ryan? Just checking. To see if this is real or if someone is playing games with us. What did you find? It is real. And it is bad. When do we meet Captain Sullivan? Stevens smiled. Ryan always did his homework. Tomorrow. Get ready to leave this place forever. I have been ready for 3 years. While Stevens collected her team from prison, Dr. Alex Bennett worked in his lab on Outpost 7, trying to understand more about the alien messages. The translations were getting clearer, and what he found made him sick. The aliens were not just asking for help. They were describing what was happening to their worlds. In detail, the Devourers did not just destroy planets. They consumed them completely, leaving behind empty space where matter used to exist. But worse than that, they also consumed memory. Worlds that had been eaten by the Devourers were not just gone. It was as if they had never existed at all. The Only reason anyone remembered them was because a few survivors had escaped before their planets were consumed. Alex found a message from the Chitauri that made him stop working completely. It was a description of what happened when a devourer touched a living mind. The creature did not just kill consciousness, it ate it. The victim experienced their entire existence being erased backwards. First their future disappeared, then their present, then their past. Finally, even the memory that they had ever existed was consumed. It was not death. It was something much worse than death. Alex called Commander Harper to his lab. "Lisa, you need to see this. I found out what the devourers actually do." He showed her the translation. Harper read it twice, then sat down heavily. My God. No wonder they are so desperate. It gets worse. I found a pattern in the messages. The devourers are not random. They are moving in a specific direction. What direction? Toward the center of the galaxy. Toward the most populated systems. They are going to hit the major civilizations next. How long do we have? Based on their movement speed, maybe 6 months before they reach the core worlds. After that, Alex shrugged. There might not be anyone left to send distress signals. Harper walked to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were praying for salvation. They were asking for noble defenders to come and save them with wisdom and courage. Instead, they were getting humanity. She thought about Captain Sullivan and the other soldiers Admiral Morrison was probably recruiting. She had read their files. These were not heroes. From the stories, these were killers, monsters who had spent their lives learning how to destroy things efficiently. But maybe that was what the galaxy needed. On Earth, Admiral Morrison stood in the secure briefing room deep under the Pentagon. The walls were covered with star maps, showing the location of every distress signal. Red dots marked worlds that had already gone silent. The pattern was clear and terrifying. General Robert Price, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, sat across from her. "Kate, are you sure about this? We are talking about first contact with alien civilizations. Should we not send diplomats? Scientists, our best people?" "Bob, our best people are diplomats and scientists. These aliens are not looking for diplomats, they are looking for exterminators. But the political implications will not matter if everyone is dead." Morrison pointed to the star map. "Look at the pattern. The devourers are systematic, efficient. They are not invaders or conquerors. They are a cleanup crew. Cleanup. Crew? They are trying to sterilize the galaxy of conscious life. Every thinking being is a target, including us." General Price studied the map for a long time. "What do you need?" "Full authorization for Operation Hellhound, black budget, no oversight, and the understanding that when this is over we might not be the good guys anymore." "Explain." "The aliens are asking for guardians of light, noble protectors, wise defenders. We are going to send them our worst nightmares instead. And when they see what we really are, they are going to be just as afraid of us as they are of the devourers, but they will be alive to be afraid." "Exactly." General Price signed the authorization papers. "God help us all." "God help the devourers," Morrison replied, "because we certainly will not." In the depths of space, the devourer scouts continued their methodical advance toward the galaxy's center. They felt no emotion as they consumed world after world. They were not evil. They were just doing what they were made to do. Behind them, the Devourer Queen stirred in the dark between galaxies. Soon she would join the feast. Soon the universe would be clean and quiet again. But she had never encountered anything like humanity before. She had never met a species that responded to existential threats with excitement instead of despair. She had never faced beings who looked at impossible odds and decided to fight anyway. The aliens had asked the cosmos for salvation. They were about to learn that salvation sometimes came wearing the face of damnation. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Valara system like black sharks smelling blood in the water. 27 warships painted in colors that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Their names were written in letters that looked like scars. Terror's End, Savage, Retribution, Night's Edge. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the tactical displays update. The Devourer ships were already in the system, surrounding Valara Prime like a noose tightening around a neck. The alien defense fleet was dying. "How many Valari ships are left?" Morrison asked. 12, Admiral, down from over 200 when we entered the system. Morrison watched a crystalline Valari cruiser shatter like glass against something that looked like living shadow. The Devourer that destroyed it was the size of a city, but it moved through space like a hunting animal. Where it passed, reality seemed to bend and twist. Communications, open a channel to the Valari command ship. The main screen flickered, and then Morrison was looking at the most beautiful face she had ever seen. The alien skin was like polished silver, and its eyes were the color of deep water. When it spoke, its voice was music. "Noble guardians, the cosmos has heard our prayers. I am Harmony Song of the Third Movement, speaker for the Valari people. We welcome you, warriors of light, to stand with us against the darkness." Morrison studied the alien's face. There was such hope there, such trust, such absolute faith that the universe had sent them heroes. "This is Admiral Kate Morrison of the Human Expeditionary Force. We are not warriors of light. We are predators. And you are about to see why that is exactly what you need." The hope in Harmony Song's eyes flickered but did not die. "I do not understand your words, Admiral Morrison. But you have come to help us, yes? You will drive away the Devourers with wisdom and courage? We will drive them away. The methods might upset you." Before Harmony Song could respond, alarms started screaming on both bridges. 3 more Devourer ships were moving toward the human fleet. Each one was larger than Morrison's flagship. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. You know what to do. Show these things what humans are good at." Captain Jake Sullivan was already in his drop pod when the order came through. Around him, his team was checking their gear one last time. Tony Martinez had enough explosives strapped to his body to level a city block. Claire Johnson was assembling a rifle that could shoot through 3 feet of steel. Ryan Brooks was connecting neural interfaces that would let him hack into systems that did not use human technology. "Remember the briefing?" Sullivan said over the team radio. "These things feed on consciousness. They expect their prey to be paralyzed by fear. They have never met anything like us." The drop pods launched from Terror's End like bullets fired from a gun. Around them, the space battle was already starting. Human ships moved in patterns that would have seemed random to the aliens watching, but Sullivan recognized the formation. It was called the Wolf Pack. It was designed for hunting things bigger than you. The first Devourer ship that engaged the human fleet learned why that was a mistake. Captain Ellen Wright of the destroyer Knight's Edge had fought in more battles than she could count. She looked at the massive shadow creature bearing down on her ship and smiled. "Weapons target their feeding organs. Let us see how they like eating plasma instead of consciousness." Knight's Edge opened fire with every weapon it had, but these were not normal weapons. Human military scientists had studied every piece of data about the Devourers that Dr. Bennett had translated. They had built weapons specifically designed to cause pain instead of just destruction. The Devourer recoiled as beams of pure agony lanced through its body. It had never felt pain before. In all the billions of years it had existed, nothing had ever hurt it. The sensation was so alien that it stopped moving completely. That was when Captain Wright showed it what humans were really good at. "All ships, focus fire on the stunned target. Kill it while it is confused." The human fleet swarmed the paralyzed Devourer like wolves bringing down a wounded deer. Their weapons were not just trying to destroy it. They were trying to make it suffer. Each hit sent waves of agony through the creature's consciousness, disrupting its ability to fight back. The Devourer died screaming in frequencies that no human could hear, but every psychic species in the system felt like ice water in their veins. On the bridge of the Valari command ship, Harmony Song watched the battle with growing horror. The human ships moved like they were alive, like they enjoyed hunting. When they killed the first Devourer, they did not celebrate victory. They immediately turned to find the next target. "Admiral Morrison," Harmony Song said over the communication channel. "Your methods, they seem very violent." "Violence is what we do," Morrison replied. She was watching her ships tear apart a second devourer with the same expression she might use to read a weather report. You asked for help. We are helping. But surely there is a way to resolve this conflict without such brutality. Perhaps we could communicate with the devourers, find out what they want? Morrison turned to look directly at Harmony Song through the screen. They want you dead. Not conquered, not enslaved, dead. And not just dead, but erased from existence, completely. There is no negotiating with extinction. Sullivan's drop pod smashed through the hull of the largest devourer ship and came to rest in what might have been a corridor. It was hard to tell. The inside of the ship was like being inside, a living nightmare. The walls moved and breathed. The floor felt like flesh under his boots. Everything was the color of shadows and despair. Tony, start placing charges. Claire, find a position with good sight lines. Ryan, see if you can hack into whatever passes for their computer system. Already on it, Ryan said. He had plugged his neural interface into something that looked like a nerve cluster in the wall. His eyes rolled back in his head as he dove into the devourer's consciousness. What he found, there was nothing like any computer system he had ever hacked. It was pure thought, raw consciousness that had existed since the beginning of time, and it was absolutely, completely insane. Jake, you need to hear this. I am in their mind, and they are not evil. They think they are doctors. Doctors? They think consciousness is a disease. They believe they are curing the universe by eliminating all thinking life. In their mind, they are the good guys. Sullivan felt cold. Can you turn their own thoughts against them? Already working on it, give me 5 minutes. While Ryan worked, Sullivan and his team moved deeper into the ship. They found the feeding chamber where the devourer processed consumed consciousness. The sight of it made even these hardened killers pause. Thousands of alien minds were trapped in crystalline cages, slowly being digested. The victims were still conscious, but could not move or speak. They could only experience their existence, being eaten piece by piece. Tony, how much explosive do you have? Enough to crack this ship in half. Do it. These people have suffered enough. The explosion that destroyed the devourer ship was visible from Valara Prime. On the surface of the planet, billions of Valari looked up at the sky and saw their salvation, written in fire and violence. In the crystal chamber where this had all started, Harmony Song felt the psychic scream of the dying devourer wash over her like a wave of cold water. But mixed with the creature's death agony was something else. The relief and gratitude of the thousands of minds that had been freed from eternal torture. For the first time, Harmony Song began to understand what Admiral Morrison had meant about being predators. The third devourer ship tried to retreat when it saw what happened to the first two. Captain Wright was having none of that. All ships pursue. Do not let it escape to warn the others. The chase lasted 3 hours and covered half the solar system. The devourer was faster than the human ships, but it had never been hunted before. It did not know how to run properly. It kept stopping to try to understand what was chasing it, and each time it stopped, the humans got closer. When they finally cornered it near the system's outer asteroid belt, Claire Johnson was ready. She had convinced Captain Wright to get Night's Edge close enough for her to take a shot with her special rifle. The bullet she fired was not made of metal. It was made of crystallized human hatred, forged in the fires of 1,000 wars and tempered with the screams of the dying. When it hit the devourer, the creature did not just die. It experienced every moment of suffering that humans had ever endured, all at once, compressed into a single instant of perfect agony. The devourer's death scream shattered asteroids and made psychic species across 3 star systems wake up screaming from nightmares they could not remember. On Valara Prime, Harmony Song stood in her crystal palace and tried to process what she had witnessed. The humans had saved her people, but the methods they used were more terrifying than the threat they had defeated. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on her communication screen. The immediate threat to your system has been eliminated. We will be moving on to engage the main devourer force. Admiral, I must ask, your people, your methods, are you always so violent? Morrison considered the question seriously. Violence is our nature. For millions of years, we lived on a world that tried to kill us every day. We survived by becoming better predators than anything that hunted us. 3 months after the victory at Valara Prime, the human fleet had pushed deep into Devourer territory. Admiral Morrison stood in the war room of Terror's End, looking at a map of the galaxy that was painted in blood and shadows. Red dots showed human victories. Black dots showed worlds that had been consumed before they could arrive. Gray dots showed worlds they had saved, but barely. The cost of each victory was getting higher. Colonel Amy Stevens walked into the war room carrying a data pad that contained her latest report. Her face was grim, and there were new scars on her, hands from the last battle. Admiral, I need to discuss the Harvester Protocol. Morrison did not look up from the map. Is it working? Yes. Too well. Stevens activated the holographic display in the center of the room. It showed the inside of laboratory ship Pandora, where human scientists were doing things that would have horrified the aliens they were trying to save. The Harvester Protocol was Colonel Stevens's idea. After studying captured devourer tissue, she had discovered that their consciousness-eating ability could be turned into a weapon. By torturing captured devourers in specific ways, humans could extract the essence that allowed them to consume minds. Then, they could put that essence into human weapons. It was brilliant. It was effective. It was absolutely evil. Show me the numbers, Morrison said. Weapon efficiency is up 400%. We can now permanently destroy devourer consciousness, instead of just killing their physical forms. But Admiral, the process requires live subjects, and the extraction procedure takes 48 hours of continuous interrogation. Morrison finally looked up from the map. You mean torture? I mean what works. But Admiral, my people are starting to show signs of psychological damage. Even the prisoners I recruited are having trouble sleeping. What we are doing to these creatures, it changes you. Are you asking me to stop the program? I am asking you to understand what we are becoming. In the medical bay of the ship Savage, Dr. Helen Carter tried to sleep, but the screams kept her awake. Not real screams. The devourers did not make sounds when they suffered, but she could feel their agony through the ship's hull, and it was driving her slowly insane. Dr. Carter had volunteered for this mission because she wanted to help save alien civilizations. She was a xenobiologist, and the chance to study new forms of life had excited her. Now she wished she had stayed on Earth. The things Colonel Stevens was doing in the laboratory were necessary, but they were not medicine. They were something else entirely, something darker. She got up from her bed and walked to the observation deck, hoping to clear her head. Outside, the stars looked the same as always, but she knew that was an illusion. The galaxy was changing. Every victory against the devourers left scars that would never heal. Her communication device buzzed. A message from her assistant. Dr. Carter, we have a problem in Lab 7. You need to see this. She made her way through the ship's corridors to the laboratory section. Lab 7 was where they kept the devourer specimens for study. When she arrived, she found her assistant, Dr. Mark Wilson, staring at a containment unit with a horrified expression. Helen, look at this. Inside the containment unit was a piece of devourer tissue about the size of a human hand. But it was changing, growing, reshaping itself into something new. How long has it been doing that? 6 hours. Ever since we started the latest extraction procedure. I think it is trying to adapt. Dr. Carter studied the readings on the containment unit's monitors. The tissue was definitely evolving, but not in the way she expected. It was not trying to escape or become more dangerous. It was trying to become more human. Mark, I think this thing is learning from the torture. It is trying to understand pain the way we understand pain. Is that possible? I do not know. But if it is, then we might have a bigger problem than anyone realizes. On the bridge of the Chitauri vessel singing, Blade, Commander Sharpclaw clicked his mandibles in distress as he watched the human ship's work. The Chitauri were an honorable species. They understood war and death and the need to fight for survival. But what the humans were doing was beyond their comprehension. The human ships had surrounded a damaged Devourer vessel. Instead of destroying it quickly, they were keeping it alive while teams of specialists went inside. Sharpclaw could hear the psychic screams of the creature being slowly taken apart. "Communications officer, connect me to Admiral Morrison." Morrison's face appeared on the screen, and Sharpclaw was shocked by what he saw. The human admiral looked older than she had 3 months ago. Her eyes had a hardness that had not been there before. "Commander Sharpclaw, what can I do for you?" "Admiral Morrison, my people are concerned about your methods. The creature you are studying, its suffering is affecting the psychic members of my crew. Then move your ship further away." "Admiral, surely there is a more humane way to extract information?" Morrison's expression did not change. "Commander, do you want to save your people or not?" "Of course, but then let me do what I do best. You asked for our help. This is what our help looks like." The communication ended, leaving Sharpclaw alone with his doubts. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, but he could see the fear in their eyes. They were no longer just afraid of the Devourers. They were starting to be afraid of their rescuers. Captain Jake Sullivan sat in the cantina of Terror's End, drinking synthetic coffee and trying not to think about the mission he had just completed. His team had successfully infiltrated a Devourer hive ship and planted explosive charges throughout its consciousness core. The explosion had freed over 10,000 alien minds that had been trapped for centuries. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, it felt like another step down a path he was not sure he wanted to walk. Tony Martinez slumped into the chair across from him. The demolitions expert's hands were shaking, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "Jake, we need to talk." "About what?" "About what we found on that hive ship. Those minds we freed, some of them had been in there for thousands of years. Do you know what that does to a consciousness? They were not grateful to be rescued. They were begging us to kill them." Sullivan took a sip of his coffee and said nothing. "And that is not the worst part," Tony continued. "The worst part is that some of my explosive charges did not work the way they were supposed to. The Devourer tissue is adapting to our weapons, learning from them." "Learning what?" "Learning how to cause pain the way we cause pain. Jake, I think we are teaching them to be like us." Before Sullivan could respond, the ship's alarm started screaming. All around the cantina, soldiers grabbed their weapons and ran for battle stations. Sullivan's communication device crackled to life. "All senior officers to the bridge. Priority Alpha." On the bridge, Admiral Morrison was staring at the tactical display with an expression of grim satisfaction. The screen showed a massive Devourer fleet moving toward their position. At the center of the fleet was something that made even the hardened bridge crew step back in fear. "Admiral, what are we looking at?" Colonel Stevens asked. "That, Colonel, is the Devourer Queen. She has finally decided to come out and play." The creature on the screen was the size of a small moon. It moved through space like a living shadow, and wherever it passed, reality seemed to bend around it. Smaller Devourers swarmed around it like antibodies protecting a virus. "How many ships does she have with her?" Morrison asked. "Over 300, all of them larger than anything we have faced before." "And how many ships do we have?" 27, Admiral. We are outnumbered more than 10 to 1. Morrison smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Good. I was afraid this was going to be too easy." She opened a communication channel to the entire human fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. You see what is coming toward us. You know what it represents. The complete extinction of every thinking being in the galaxy, including us." She paused to let that sink in. "The aliens asked the cosmos for noble guardians to save them. They got us instead. We are not noble. We are not guardians. We are killers and monsters and the worst things their nightmares could imagine. But right now, at this moment, we are also the only thing standing between consciousness and oblivion." On ships throughout the fleet, soldiers checked their weapons one last time. In the laboratories, scientists prepared their most horrible creations for battle. In the medical bays, doctors tried not to think about what they would have to do to the wounded. "I will not lie to you," Morrison continued. "Most of us are going to die in the next few hours, but we are going to make sure that when we die, We take as many of these things with us as possible, and maybe, just maybe, we will hurt them badly enough that the civilizations behind us will have a chance to survive. She looked around the bridge at her officers. These people had followed her into hell and back. They had done things that would haunt them for the rest of their lives, but they were still here. The Devourers think they are doctors curing a disease. They think consciousness is an infection that needs to be eliminated. Well, if we are an infection, then let us be the kind of infection that kills the host. The Devourer Queen felt the human fleet moving toward her and was puzzled. Most species fled when they saw her true form. These strange creatures were charging directly at her, singing songs of violence and death. The battle for the Galactic core began with the death of stars. The Devourer Queen moved through space like a living wound in reality, and wherever she passed, suns went dark. Not destroyed, but consumed so completely that even their light was erased from history. Admiral Morrison watched from the bridge of Terror's End as entire solar systems vanished from the tactical display. "Admiral, we are receiving surrender offers from the Chitauri and Hydros fleets," Communications Officer Linda Torres reported. "What are they saying?" "They want to withdraw from the battle. They say the odds are impossible and that continuing to fight would be suicide for their species." Morrison nodded. She had expected this. The alien species were logical. They could count. 27 human ships against more than 300 Devourer vessels was not a battle. It was an execution. Tell them they have permission to withdraw. Thank them for their service. "Ma'am, should we not try to convince them to stay?" "No. They have families to protect and civilizations to preserve. We are here to buy them time to escape." One by one, the alien ships peeled away from the human formation and jumped to hyperspace. Soon only the human fleet remained, a tiny cluster of dark metal facing an ocean of living shadow. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. Final weapons check. Activate all Harvester Protocol weapons. This is not a battle we are trying to win. This is a statement we are making to the universe." In the engine room of Terror's End, Chief Engineer Paul Davis watched the reactor readings climb to dangerous levels. The ship was running on power systems that were never meant to operate at full capacity for more than a few minutes, but they would need every bit of energy they could generate for what was coming. Around him, his engineering crew worked with the calm efficiency of people who knew they were going to die. They had volunteered for this mission, knowing it was probably a one-way trip. Now that the moment had arrived, they felt strangely peaceful. "Chief, the reactor is at 110% capacity," his assistant called out. "Push it to 120. If it explodes, we will not be around to complain about it." Captain Jake Sullivan stood in the hangar bay of Terror's End, surrounded by his team and 200 other soldiers who had volunteered for the boarding mission. They were going to try to reach the Devourer Queen's consciousness core and plant nuclear charges inside it. The odds of success were so low they were barely worth calculating. The odds of survival were 0. "Listen up," Sullivan called out to the assembled troops. "In 10 minutes we are going to board drop pods and launch directly at the largest, most dangerous creature in the galaxy. We are going to try to get inside it and blow it up from within. Most of us will die before we even reach the target." The soldiers looked at him with expressions of grim determination. These were not heroes from stories. They were killers and criminals and broken people who had found something worth dying for. But if we succeed, every thinking being in the galaxy gets to live another day. Every child gets to grow up. Every dream gets to be dreamed. Every song gets to be sung. That is what we are buying with our lives. Tony Martinez raised his hand. "Captain, what happens if we fail?" "Then we fail magnificently. And maybe our failure will inspire someone else to succeed." The drop pods launched just as the first Devourer ships reached the human fleet. Space filled with weapons fire and explosions, and the psychic screams of dying minds. The human ships fought with a savagery that shocked even the Devourers. They used ramming attacks and suicide runs and weapons that violated every law of civilized warfare. The destroyer Night's Edge died taking down a Devourer battleship 3 times its size. Captain Wright's last words over the radio were, "Tell my mother I went down fighting." The cruiser Retribution lasted longer, but not by much. Its crew fought room by room as Devourer boarding parties consumed their consciousness deck by deck. The final transmission from the ship was the sound of the crew singing an old Earth war song as they detonated the reactor. Admiral Morrison watched ship after ship disappear from her tactical display. Each loss was a knife in her heart, but she did not let it show on her face. Her crew needed to see strength, not grief. "Ma'am, drop pods are approaching the Queen's outer defenses," Torres reported. "Good. Maybe they can do some damage before we all die." Sullivan's drop pod smashed through the Queen's outer shell and tumbled into a space that defied all logic. The inside of the Devourer Queen was not built according to any physical laws that humans understood. Gravity pulled in 6 directions at once. Time moved backward in some areas and forward in others. The walls were made of crystallized screams. "Stay together," Sullivan ordered over the radio. "Do not look directly at anything for too long. This place will drive you insane if you let it." Half of the boarding party was already dead, consumed by defenses that existed in dimensions humans could not perceive. But the survivors pushed deeper into the nightmare, following Sullivan toward what their instruments said was the consciousness core. They found it in a chamber that was bigger on the inside than the outside. The Queen's mind was a sphere of pure, thought the size of a city, pulsing with power that had existed since the birth of the universe. Around it floated the consumed consciousnesses of 1 billion species, trapped in eternal torment. "Tony, how much explosive do we have left?" "Enough to crack a moon in half. But Jake, I do not think conventional explosives will work on this thing. It is not really matter, it is more like an idea that thinks it is real." Ryan Brooks was already connecting his neural interface to the nearest consciousness cluster. "Let me try something. If this thing is made of thought, maybe I can hack it." "Ryan, no. That thing will consume your mind the second you connect." "Maybe. Or maybe it will choke on what it finds in there." Before anyone could stop him, Ryan plugged directly into the Devourer Queen's consciousness. What happened next would be talked about for 1,000 years by the species that survived to remember it. Ryan's mind was not like other minds. Years of cyber warfare and exposure to digital nightmares had twisted it into something that was part human, part machine, and part pure spite. When the Queen tried to consume his consciousness, she found something she had never encountered before. Ryan's mind was poisonous. The Queen recoiled in shock and pain as human hatred and defiance flooded her thoughts. For billions of years she had consumed fear and despair, and the gentle acceptance of death. She had never tasted the kind of rage that refused to die quietly. "What are you?" the Queen asked, speaking directly into Ryan's mind. "I am human," he replied. "And you just made the biggest mistake of your very long life." Ryan began uploading every piece of human history he could access. The Queen experienced the Black Death and the Holocaust, and every war humanity had ever fought. She felt the pain of every human who had ever died in agony. She understood for the first time what it meant to suffer without the release of death. But more than that, she experienced human hope. The stubborn refusal to give up even when everything was lost. The ability to find meaning in meaningless sacrifice. The decision to fight impossible odds because fighting was better than surrendering. The Queen's scream shattered reality across 3 star systems. Every psychic species in the galaxy felt it as a wave of pure anguish that made them weep for things they could not name. "I understand now," the Queen said as her consciousness began to collapse. "You are not a disease to be cured. You are something new, something I was never meant to encounter." "Yeah," Ryan said as his own mind began to burn out from the connection. "We get that a lot." The Queen's death took 6 hours and destroyed everything within 100 light years of her position. The explosion was visible from halfway across the galaxy, a new star born from the death of the universe's oldest nightmare. When it was over, only 5 human ships remained. Terror's End was held together by emergency patches and the sheer bloody-minded refusal of its crew to let it fall apart. Admiral Morrison sat in her command chair and looked at the tactical display showing empty space where the Devourer fleet used to be. "Status report," she said quietly. "All Devourer forces eliminated, Admiral. No survivors detected. The threat appears to be neutralized. And our casualties? 91% casualties across all human forces. We have maybe 300 people left alive in the entire fleet. Morrison closed her eyes for a moment. 300 survivors out of 15,000. The price of victory had been almost everything they had. Communications. Open a channel to all surviving alien civilizations. The screen filled with faces. Harmony song of the Valari, looking older and sadder than when they first met. Commander Sharp Claw of the Chitauri, his mandibles clicking in what might have been grief or gratitude. Representatives of dozens of species all looking at the humans with expressions of complicated emotion. The devourer threat has been eliminated, Morrison announced. Your civilizations are safe. You can rebuild. You can live. You can dream. Admiral Morrison, Harmony Song said softly. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid. But I must ask, what happens now? What happens to your people? Morrison looked around her damaged bridge at her exhausted crew. They had saved the galaxy, but at the cost of their own souls. They were heroes and monsters and something in between.